ZeBirdBrain, and today we are talking about the general interface. So, you know, Harmony have amazing guides tool, and you can use these guides to make like a grid on the floor to make sure that your animation is standing somewhere. Sometimes I'm too lazy to draw those, so I go to my node view and I go and fetch either a grid or a field chart. You can also find those in your node library, so you have field and you have grid. What this basically does is it allows you to see your grid or your field chart within your camera view, because usually you need to have a drawing tool active and then go here and get your grid to show up. But you need a drawing layer and you need to be on that layer, and you need a drawing tool to see it. If you get your transform tool, you don't see it. So, you know, that's the intended use of the thing. So that's why, you know, if I go here and I look at my little squares, if I render, I don't see them because you don't want to see your grid in render, right? So it's really just for OpenGL, like you're not going to see that in render. But what I do like to do is get a peg, set it to 3D, and then I take that peg and I connect it to a grid. And then it gives me a floor to animate on. It's lazy, I know, it's gross. Like, I should be drawing those. But you know what? Sometimes you don't have time for that. Like, ain't nobody got time to draw a grid on the floor, right? So I like to use this to quickly just set a perspective in my scene. So I thought I would share this with all of you guys because I don't want to hear anyone saying like, I don't have time to put a grid. No, this is just excuses. Everybody has a time to put a 3 peg and a grid and slap that on the floor. Now you can see here that my color card is kind of bleeding through my grid. This is because if I go in perspective and I turn around, you see that actually it's not my color card, it's my background layer, huh? Well, you know, my background layer is cutting through my grid. You can ignore it, or if it bothers you, of course, you can take your background, give it a peg, go in your top view, and you can take that background, use maintain size, and just push it behind. You'll not see a difference in terms of sizing, but it will be pushed behind your grid, so that now it's not annoying anymore. And you can use that grid to make sure that your animation is standing on the ground the right way. And like I said, the grid will not render, but the numbers will sometimes, so don't forget to disconnect it before you render, just to make sure. But yeah, you can use either grid, or you can use field chart, or if you want to be the perfect person, instead of using these cheap nodes, you could also make yourself a grid, and then just store it into your library, and then port it back whenever you need it. So, you know, then you wouldn't get the numbers appearing out of nowhere in your renders. I do recommend using the field chart over the grid, because if you look here, if I render, I will see the number of the grid on the floor. Might be a bug, I don't know, but if you use the field chart, you don't get to see the numbers on the floor. So field chart, you don't see the number, grid, you see the number. So I'm gonna unconnect my grid, and now it's gonna be perfect. You won't see the grid on the floor. It's really just in OpenGL. So yeah, so that's why I recommend using the field chart and not the grid. But some people like to see the X in numbers because it gives them like a depth value. I don't know, I hate it. I prefer to use the field guide. And yeah, that's what I use to achieve my perspective. But it doesn't stop there, okay? Hear me out. I am a very, very lazy person. So nothing stops you from having multiple of those and giving them all a peg that is set to 3D. And build something with it. So I can use those, and then I can kind of like push them in space, and you can kind of build stuff with them. I mean, it's pretty rudimentary, but you know, if I hide my animation, you know, you can start to build stuff with those just as a indicator. Like if you don't have access to a 3D software, or if you can't understand Blender to save your life, it's pretty quick to just build a quick set with those, just to get a little perspective going on. You can like move them into your top view here. Like I said, it's pretty rudimentary, but you know, it's pretty cool if you just want to set up quick perspective like that. So this is my cheap way of doing 3D in Harmony. I just use a bunch of field charts, and then when I render, they disappear, so nobody knows I did that. It's my little secret. So yeah, that's it. And after that, if you want to get a drawing and draw on top of it, nothing stops you. Just going to take that drawing and connect it on top of my field charts, and I'm gonna draw on it. Of course, if you want to make sure that your drawing shows up on top, always use a matrix size. But yeah, you can use that as a reference. I'm using the current drawing on top to keep my drawing on top, but if you don't have that, You can also just take your field charts and, you know, maintain size them at the back, just like I've shown you. Or you can unite them under a composite, like so. And then you can give a transparency to that composite. This should make your guides a bit more transparent in OpenGL. How amazing is that? Right? It's pretty neat. So yeah, that's one of the way I use the field chart. I mean, it's not the intended use, but sometimes you have to think outside the box. And yeah, have a nice week.